Hey guys, welcome back to Clear Direct. Quick update on the Whirlwind propeller saga, and then I'm going to do one final flight with the Whirlwind, and then we're going to go into the debrief, and I'm going to show you this software that's for free that's just blowing my mind as far as flight tests and just data logging and whatnot. So first off, the reason why I need to fly this one more time is, as you can see, I've got 29-inch Alaska bush wheels, and I want a baseline performance data set from the Whirlwind propeller before we switch over to the beautiful new Kato propeller. We're gonna try a 78-inch prop for speed and then an 84-inch prop for increased cooling as well as stall. So Craig Cato's gonna come up in a few weeks and we're gonna go through all that stuff. So first off, as a review, these bolts have been shearing. Thanks to you guys for reaching out and letting me know that you've been having the kind of same issues. What I didn't know is that the hub itself has been cracking as well. Holy cow. So RANS, good on them. They've been listening to everybody, and again, thanks to everybody, because the more people listen, the more companies will change. They put out an operational alert, so I'll link the PDF in the description below for you to check out, and for you to also just be aware of what they're wanting you to check before flying this thing again. You'll notice in this configuration, I've got no spinner, so no spinner backing plate, which I think is part of the problem. Carbon fiber compression, and again, Craig is going to go through kind of what he thinks is going on, and as well as I reached out to Hartzell before recording today, and they said, hey, wait a few days, but we've got some remedy data coming, so I will do a full new video on what Hartzell comes up with and get that out to you here in a couple days. But wanted to get this out to you. So this is the configuration we're going to be flying. So there's no spinner backing plate or spinner. Should be negligible on the speeds, but when I test the Kato propeller, so that we're apples to apples, I won't have a spinner on it, as well as we can get to the prop hub a lot easier to adjust the shims so that it self-aligns the pitch such that we can attain the appropriate static thrust, climb thrust, all that good stuff. So so other things to note, I've taken off all the fairings, well, not all of them, but the wing fairings both sides, as well as there's a fairing down here, so that'll affect the performance a little bit. But again, apples to apples, I'm going to keep it this way. And the reason why I have those fairings disconnected or taken off is because Jeff at Aerosport Products has some great new products that are way more robust than the ABS RANS ones, and I'm going to get those on and painted as well. So while I'm waiting for those, we're going to pay a little bit of a drag penalty. If you've been following me on Instagram, you will know that I've finally, thanks with help from my kids, solved the pedostatic leak. I found it. The culprit was up in here. I mounted this in a location that it's very hard to get to torque down the fittings correctly. So if I were to do it over again, I would probably install it on this rib right here, so then I can access it from both of those inspection panels. But regardless, I got it tightened down, and now we're getting great data. And thanks to Lift Aviation for sponsoring yet another video. Can't recommend their helmets and their aviation gear enough. That's the AV1 4 helmet. I just feel a lot more comfortable with this, flying this plane in this configuration in a kind of a high risk scenario before we have good solution on this prop and this propeller. But this is the last flight on this propeller, so let's get some data. All right, we're getting things warmed up. Got a couple of points set up to do climb angle. So we're gonna get static thrust, we're gonna get takeoff performance, climb rate, climb angle, all sorts of stuff with this propeller and this last flight of this Whirlwind. But really, I'm not going to record any of the execution of the flight today. We're just going to talk about it in the debrief because I am so excited about this new software called flysto.net. So let's go. Been traffic, experimental 223 Charlie Delta, line up 08 runway 34 for a right crosswind departure to the east of Benton. All right, created 2 points about 180 miles apart, the middle being my test flight area. So then I've got 90 miles to the south and 90 miles to the north, roughly, so that I can accurately test climb angle, because that is based upon distance, or altitude gain per distance across the ground. So if it's just true north and true south, I can just fly the mag corrected heading, which is 165 right now, and stay on that line and be proceeding direct through south. Essentially my range is accurate. 1 mile is 1 minute, theoretically. off to a good championship start, 5-0. Let's go. All right, we are going to talk about the Whirlwind propeller issues. So first up, the RANS company put out an operational alert because it shows some more stuff that I didn't realize was going on. There's cracking in the hubs here. So I had sheared bolts. So, oh, look at this one. That one's not good. So Hartzell called me, as I mentioned in the intro, and said that they're going to call me back when they have hopefully a remedy, and I'll get that to you immediately. But for now, Kato propeller to the rescue. So I'm testing a 78-inch and an 84-inch, and Craig's going to be here featured in the next episode, and we're getting to test both of these propellers, and then with that data, he's going to be able to go home to Northern California and really refine the design specific to RANS aircraft, and he's going to have an awesome option for you that potentially will take care of some cylinder head temperatures. So, but more on that in the future. So this was my data from the last flight on that Whirlwind prop to get the baseline data. And at the end, I'm going to show you that flystow.net software to show you how good that is. And if you're not using it, you should. My backcountry bogie is pretty close to OEM configuration. It's got the 180 horsepower Titan XIO 340, normally aspirated. It's got 2 Plasma 3 light speed ignition systems, and I had 850 tires, which are about 22 inches in diameter. And of course I had initially the RANS fairings, and then here are some variations, though, from the OEM. I've got more fairings from Aerosport products, their wingtips, the fairing on the tail, and the wing cuffs. I've got the Aerosport products panel, the air intake for the engine, and then the nostril flow ramps. And stay tuned, because I'm going to get the wing fairings, the lift strut fairings at the bottom of the wing, as well as the landing gear fairings underneath the airplane, because they've been cracking, the ones from RANS. So stay tuned for that as well. And then, of course, I put a trip lip on the cowl exhaust to help increase the negative pressure and get that hot air out. I've got tons of Garmin avionics, overkill a little bit, but they're working great. And that's what we're pulling from. We're pulling from its SD card, and it records at a 1 hertz rate. There you go. And and so we're just pulling this data, and that's one limitation. The Dynon, actually, you can crank up the data logging rate for tests and whatnot. I wish we could do that in Garmin, but that's a limitation. But I've got tons of avionics, which will add to the gross weight of this aircraft, or excuse me, that basic empty weight, and we'll get that right now. So the empty weight before the bush wheels was 1075, 488 kilograms. Which makes the useful load with the max gross weight for this aircraft 1,800 pounds. So there's the useful load. And then, of course, the 2-blade Whirlwind Cub 82 ground adjusted to 16.8 degrees of pitch. So what did that get us? And I'm realizing that I really haven't gone through performance data for this airplane. So we're doing it here. All right. We got a true airspeed of 149. This airplane is listed about 155, which is a little bit optimistic, but I'm getting pretty close to that, so I'm pretty happy. And then that's at RPM 2620, so maybe I'm leaving 80 RPMs on the table, but I just don't like running it right at 2,700 RPM because, one little burble and you're overspeeding. So that's my safety margin, if you will. And I rarely run this, You'll see why here in a second. But when I am doing that, fuel flow is 12.5 gallons an hour, which gives you 11.9 miles per gallon statute. Now the CHTs will climb above 440. I've only let them kind of stabilize once. It's below red line. I think red line's 475, but they will stabilize, but it's just, I don't like flying in the yellow. So I pretty much bring it back to the green by going lean a peak. So this is some stats, kind of the max performance at 78, so a little bit lower than 7,500 feet, because typically 7,500 feet is where you want to test to get 75% power, but this is what I've got, and this is what we'll use a lot during this discussion and tests going forward. So 50 degrees lean of peak, And that's the last cylinder to peak, and it's 50 degrees Fahrenheit of the last cylinder, the leanest cylinder. So the true airspeed I'm getting is 138 miles an hour, 120 knots, and that brings the RPM back down to 2510. And then the fuel flow at that point is roughly 8.5 gallons per hour, which then increases the economy to 16.2 miles per gallon. All right, and now the CHTs are happy. They're stabilizing in about the hottest one at about 410. So we put on the bush wheels, giddy up, and the cruise. We're still developing the same things here, and I'll compare them side by side in a second. So true airspeed is down to 141 miles an hour, and all roughly the same RPM. Fuel flow is 12.5 gallons per hour, and I didn't repitch this, so this is still 16.8 degrees of pitch on the Whirlwind prop. There's fuel flow numbers and the economy. CHTs do the same thing. And then Eco Cruise, when I pull it back, now there's the Eco Cruise. So that number is important to me because that's where I'm cruising a lot when I'm by myself. RPM's down to 2,500, and there's the economy. And then again, the CHTs just love it down there at 410. Take the wheels back off, go back to the 850s. I want to adjust the climb performance before and after. So we'll get to the after here in a second with the bush wheels. The best climb angle at about 5,000 feet pressure altitude, and it's a 50% load factor. Where that is I'm halfway between basic empty weight with me and 10 gallons of fuel is 0%, and 100% is 1,800 pounds. So half of that, which is, light for a big long cross-country flight, but relatively accurate for and an easy target to hit during test. So best angle of climb, it's actually probably slower than this, but this is the slowest that I tested at 55 knots, and I'm getting 1,225 feet per nautical mile. Again, this is with the small tires before the 29 nits were installed, and then that's 1,064 feet per statute mile. Now the best rate of climb, I'm speeding up a little bit, of course, so 70 knots. I'm showing 1,275 feet per minute. All right, now let's add the 29-inch bush wheels on and see what we get. The best angle of climb is 55 knots again, and it's a little bit less. Again, I'll show these side by side. 1084 feet per nautical mile, 942 per statute mile. Best rate of climb was at 65 knots, a little bit slower, and 75 knots was, or whatever it was in the last slide, was pretty close, but this was technically the fastest climb rate at 1142. All right, so here it is all together. So let me intro this because it's a bit of an eye chart. So we got all these. We're going to go through each. This is before the bush wheels, so kind of OEM config, if you will. And then the only change here, it's the same Whirlwind prop, same pitch, but just the 29-inch bush wheels are put on. And then there's the Delta. So line by line, useful load went down by 47 pounds with those heavy bush wheels. Again, they're not the Airstreaks. They're the classic tread 29-inch Alaska bush wheels. So the true airspeed, which I'm never flying, I'm losing 8 statute. So we're forgetting about knots right now because everybody likes miles an hour, and that just shows a little bit of a bigger differentiator for miles an hour. So only 8 miles an hour slower rich of peak. When we're lean of peak, and the slower you go, the less difference it has, right? Because the less drag it's creating. Just 2 miles an hour slower. Miles per gallon is only 0.2 reduction. And then the best angle of climb, I'm losing about 122 feet per statute mile. And the climb rate, I'm losing 133 feet per minute. All right, the takeoff distance, pretty equivalent. I'm only losing about 10 feet. And in both the takeoff and landing distances. And then for the rich of peak CHTs, I want those up there because right here, the 84-inch Kato prop has this cooling mod that has additional pitch at the root of the hub to throw air down your intakes. And so it is designed specifically for that purpose. So I'm very curious about that. I'll probably add lean of peak CHTs there and get a lot more data and flush this out when Craig comes to town. But of course, those 2 columns are left open. Now, this is a fun one. So Bend, which is my home airport, to Johnson Creek, hours, minutes. So it's at lean of peak. I'm only losing 2 minutes. So 2 minutes for over 2-hour flight, that's pretty negligible if you ask me. How about it's a quarter of a gallon? All right. Now, cub cruising. So when I'm cruising with my buddies at 100 miles an hour, my fuel flow is down 0.1 gallon per hour. And then the miles per hour is only, I think that means that was supposed to be gallons per hour. I'll change that. But gallons per hour is only down 0.3. So there you have it. And then the CHTs were happy at about 380 degrees Fahrenheit. Nice and happy for that Titan motor. The yellow line is 425. All right, so the moment you've all been waiting for, let's go ahead and get over to, first off, Savvy. So this is a great resource, and both of these are free, okay? SavvyAviation.com. You can upload as much as you want, and then it just parses through the CSV file, comma separated file. You can open it in Excel or Apple Numbers or Google Sheets and go through line by line to see what all is there. But this is a great way to see your entire flight. And if you hover over a spot, it shows you where you are in that flight. There I was right there. Did a couple of touch and goes up at Madras, which has a grass strip. So you can also, I have EGT versus fuel flow, which is great to show lean of peak and where you're. So let's see, I didn't do a slow, I did the quick pull of the, and you can back out, right through there. So anyway, you can really refine the data there, and then you can go to analysis and pick 2 points and find the delta, the rate of change, do a gamma injector check, and then a mag check. There's some wizardry in there. Now this is great, and you can have up to 4 data points up here, 1, 2, 3, 4. But let's show you what my Garmin is recording. That at least there's a lot more, but this is what Savvy can parse through, all this stuff. But I'm eager to get over to Flystow because they add another layer of analysis to the program. So here's Flystow. I'm not affiliated or sponsored in any way. I think they're at Sun and Fun. Yep, there they are. So they're in that booth right there, MD-9B. Hopefully you're not watching this video. You're out having fun at Lakeland. But then you go into My Flights, and I want to show you first the insights because talking about analysis. So this shows you kind of just all your flights. There's my Oshkosh trip, of course, and then bouncing around the backcountry. I don't have all my flights listed in here because I discovered it later. But you can show your averages. So of everything that you load in, it's going to have some trends, analysis. You can change it by week, month, year, etc. So fuel flow, distance, fuel. So let's go back, and then some highlights. Some records, if you will. Your highest ground speed was 152 knots, obviously descending into Boise, and then highest true airspeed, and then highest average ground speed right there. It was Bend to Missoula, had a nice tailwind going to Oshkosh, highest true airspeed. So it's just super fun, and it means more and more the more data you give it, right? Okay. Landings, 128 landings. That's pretty cool that I've loaded in, of course. You got crew. You can add passengers or co-pilots or whatnot, but you can have multiple aircraft, I believe. And then here's where you kind of set your flags. So this essentially is like FOQA, or MFOQA in the military. For the airlines, FOQA is Flight Ops Quality Assurance, and they pull stuff from every single flight and are looking at things at certain exceedances, and they've set certain limits. And you can too here. It'll automatically, when you tell it what type of airplane you have, it'll obviously it'll preload some flags for you that you can then adjust. Like on landing, you can adjust or get flagged. Or how about CHTs? If you were when CHT is above the red line for at least 5 seconds, it'll flag you. And when CHT is less than 175 airborne for at least 36 seconds, you're kind of cooling the motor. And so here I am in the caution zone in 44 out of 68 flights. Okay, Barrow. Anyway, so and then you can see your approaches, because that's what we care about in the airline world quite a bit. Stable approach. You can define what a stable approach is. we have our own, gates and whatnot that we establish, or that the company establishes for us, that we have to meet. And if we don't have that criteria, we're supposed to go around. So, and they're going to get a notification. And if you don't go around out of an unstabilized approach, you could potentially get a phone call. You could call the union and then request to see the FOQA data. So this is amazing. And I see this as a really powerful tool for like a flight school, or maybe a charter operation. I don't know if it's robust enough for that. Let's go ahead and dig into the flight. Here was a flight that I showed you on Savvy. And so this is the initial view. You get all this good data and flags, autopilot off right there, autopilot on right there. So it has some turbulence data. It'll even have ADS-B of other aircraft. It'll give you a warning, potentially if you had a potential flight through another aircraft's wake turbulence. So it's way more aware than just the data you give it. Cool. So let's just go top to bottom. Obviously, here's the date. You can drill down. You can see the flags. Here, I'll just show you the flags. So height, AGL less than 500 feet with distance to the airport greater than 5 nautical miles. We're going to see that one a lot, so I'll probably turn that flag off. Let's see what that does. Here it is. Yeah, here's where we can like delete it or change it. But let's go back to that flight. And it gives you your startup, shutdown, brakes off, brakes on. So block in, kind of block out time, takeoff and landing, fuel used, and then actual flight log. And then you can review flight maneuvers. So I didn't do any, I don't know if it does stalls or chandelles or anything like that, but please let me know in the comments if it does. That'd be pretty cool. But it has all kind of significant events, climbs, descents, approaches, landings right there. Okay, back to the summary. And then total ground and air distances, how much time on taxi out, taxi in. And then you can see how, since this puts so much thought and intelligence into the data, that sometimes it's just, you just want a piece of data. It's better just to go over to Savvy, and then you can just pull it out and look at it. But day to day, this is fantastic. So let me show you one goodness, and this is going to be good for STOL pilots who are really working on their short takeoffs and landings. So let's show you a stop and go I did up at Madras. So it's going to zoom into that maneuver, and then you've got a vertical chart right here that shows some really great information. Then of course you've got this is altitude. You can show your speed, your angle of attack, vertical speed, pitch, bank, power, slip, and skid. There's another view I saw that shows you how close to center line you land, which is pretty great. So as I mentioned, I did a stop and go. So there's the threshold. You can see how far past the threshold you touch down, so about 140 feet or so. And then the ground roll to a complete stop was just under the 500-foot mark, so it's about 370 feet or so. So that ground roll is right there. And then, of course, ground roll for takeoff. Let's go ahead and take a look at a takeoff. I think this one I actually paused or stopped for longer, so it just logged it as a full stop on the grass strip just to get this good data. Okay, so I touched down about 160 feet past the threshold, and then I was stopped. Let's look at there we go. That's a great one to show where you're stopped just prior to 600 feet, so a little less aggressive on the braking there. That's indicated airspeed. You got ground speed, true airspeed. You can overlay or just focus in on just your ground speed right there. So cool. So you're getting a feel for how powerful this was. You can see, I believe this is the winds. And then you can just drill down to where you were at 50 feet, both in landing or takeoff. So let's show you a takeoff. And if you're doing in flight test, if you're doing, tests to see how far to clear a 50-foot obstacle, it's right there for you. So you don't have to do the math. It's just pretty dang amazing. Okay, other modes, you can put it in playback mode. and kind of watch yourself go real time, or, well, actually this is 2 times. Yeah, you can slow it down, go really fast, and then there's a way to open up this to a bigger screen. I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but you can change the map. Let's explore this. A street view, topography, satellite with opacity, show ADS-B traffic. See, here we go. So there's somebody else. So if you ever have a near miss, you can analyze that. You can show the weather, and then show airspaces, and then more data right there. Cool. You can clear that. You can have a 3D view. So this you have to pay for in ForeFlight. You do not have to pay for it here. So check out how powerful that is. Okay. Oh, here's the cockpit view with the virtual HUD. That's what I was looking for earlier. Let's slow it down a little bit. Let's go real time, let's say. With, you can really debrief where your flight path marker is. And again, it's a 1 Hertz rate. So there's no smoothing applied to it that I'm aware of. So just heads up, that's why it's a little bit herky-jerky there. And then this one, engine parameters, you can pull up specific things. It'll record turbulence, acceleration. Let's see what acceleration looks like. Lateral and normal, which I assume is vertical acceleration. And then everything else that your avionics is recording. So you can watch your RPM, see if you did an overspeed or whatnot. All right, last tab up here. This is where you're adding your flight videos. Okay, so you can upload your videos. I've never done that, so I'm not gonna speak to that. But you guys, that is the incredible software of flystow.net. I imagine they're probably going to want money after a while, but so far so good, and it is free. So thanks for watching this video. As I mentioned, we're going to be putting on I've already got the 78-inch Kato on, and then we're going to get the 84-inch on, and we're going to debrief that with Craig here. And I look forward to filling in all of this data over here and giving you guys good options in case you don't want to stick with that Whirlwind propeller. And I'm happy that I have gone with Kato. They're just an amazing company. They're not a sponsor. I'm not affiliated. I'm just enthralled with that family. They're just great Americans and make a great product in the United States, and the customer support is fantastic. So a well-built product. So I can't say enough. You're going to hear a lot more about them obviously in the future, but hope that was worth it. Give this video a like if you did, and subscribe if you feel compelled to. Thanks a lot. It's Steve. You're cleared direct.